"You are alone again, Miss Grey," said he. "Yes. What kind of people are those ladies, the Misses Green?" "I really don't know." "That's strange, when you live so near and see them so often." "Well, I suppose they are lively, good-tempered girls, but I imagine you must know them better than I do yourself, for I never exchanged a word with either of them." "Indeed? They don't strike me as being particularly reserved." "Very likely they are not so to many people of their own class, but they consider themselves as moving in quite a different sphere from me." He made no reply to this, but after a short pause he said, "I suppose it's these things, Miss Grey, that make you think you could not live without a home." "Not exactly. The fact is I am too socially disposed to be able to live contentedly without a friend, and as the only friends I have, or am likely to have, are at home, or rather, if they were gone, I will not say I could not live, but I would rather not live in such a desolate world." "But why do you say the only friends you are likely to have? Are you so unsociable that you cannot make friends?" "No, but I never made one yet, and in my present position there is no possibility of doing so, or even of forming a common acquaintance. The fault may be partly in myself, but I hope not altogether." "The fault is partly in society, and partly, I should think, in your immediate neighbours, and partly too in yourself, for many ladies in your position would make themselves be noticed and accounted of." "But your pupils should be companions for you in some degree. They cannot be many years younger than yourself." "Oh yes, they are good company sometimes, but I cannot call them friends, nor would they think of bestowing such a name on me. They have other companions better suited to their tastes." "Perhaps you are too wise for them. How do you amuse yourself when alone? Do you read much?" "Reading is my favourite occupation, when I have leisure for it and books to read." From speaking of books in general, he passed to different books in particular, and proceeded by rapid transitions from topic to topic, till several matters, both of taste and opinion, had been discussed considerably within the space of half an hour, but without the embellishment of many observations from himself, he being evidently less bent upon communicating his own thoughts and predilections than on discovering mine. He had not the tact or the art to effect such a purpose by skilfully drawing out my sentiments or ideas through the real or apparent statement of his own, or leading the conversation by imperceptible gradations to such topics as he wished to advert to, but such gentle abruptness, and such single-minded straightforwardness, could not possibly offend me. And why should he interest himself at all in my moral and intellectual capacities? What is it to him what I think or feel? I asked myself, and my heart throbbed in answer to the question. But Jane and Susan Green soon reached their home, as they stood parleying at the park gates, attempting to persuade Miss Murray to come in. I wished Mr. Weston would go, that she might not see him with me when she turned round, but, unfortunately, his business, which was to pay one more visit to poor Mark Wood, led him to pursue the same path as we did, till nearly the close of our journey. When, however, he saw that Rosalie had taken leave of her friends, and I was about to join her, he would have left me and passed on at a quicker pace, but as he civilly lifted his hat in passing her, to my surprise, instead of returning the salute with a stiff, ungracious bow, she accosted him with one of her sweetest smiles, and, walking by his side, began to talk to him with all imaginable cheerfulness and affability, and so we proceeded all three together. After a short pause in the conversation, Mr. Weston made some remark addressed particularly to me, as referring to somewhat we had been talking of before, but before I could answer, Miss Murray replied to the observation and enlarged upon it. He rejoined, and from thence to the close of the interview she engrossed him entirely to herself. It might be partly owing to my own stupidity, my want of tact and assurance, but I felt myself wronged. I trembled with apprehension, and I listened with envy to her easy, rapid flow of utterance, and saw with anxiety the bright smile with which she looked into his face from time to time, for she was walking a little in advance, for the purpose, as I judged, of being seen as well as heard. If her conversation was light and trivial, it was amusing, and she was never at a loss for something to say, or for suitable words to express it in. There was nothing pert or flippant in her manner now, as when she walked with Mr. Hatfield. There was only a gentle, playful kind of vivacity, which I thought must be peculiarly pleasing to a man of Mr. Weston's disposition and temperament. When he was gone, she began to laugh, and muttered to herself, "I thought I could do it." "Do what?" I asked. "Fix that man." "What in the world do you mean?" "I mean that he will go home and dream of me. I have shot him through the heart." "How do you know?" "By many infallible proofs, more especially the look he gave me when he went away. It was not an impudent look. I exonerate him from that. It was a look of reverential, tender adoration. Ha, ha! He's not quite such a stupid blockhead as I thought him." I made no answer, for my heart was in my throat, or something like it, and I could not trust myself to speak. "Oh God, avert it!" I cried internally, "for his sake, not for mine." Miss Murray made several trivial observations as we passed up the park, to which, in spite of my reluctance to let one glimpse of my feelings appear, I could only answer by monosyllables, whether she intended to torment me, or merely to amuse herself. I could not tell, and did not much care, but I thought of the poor man and his one lamb, and the rich man with his 1,000 flocks, and I dreaded I knew not what for Mr. Weston, independently of my own blighted hopes. Right glad was I to get into the house, and I find myself alone once more in my own room. My first impulse was to sink into the chair beside the bed, and laying my head on the pillow, to seek relief in a passionate burst of tears. There was an imperative craving for such an indulgence, but, alas! I must restrain and swallow back my feelings still. There was the bell, the odious bell for the schoolroom dinner, and I must go down with a calm face, and smile, and laugh, and talk nonsense. Yes, and eat too, if possible, as if all was right, and I was just returned from a pleasant walk. Chapter 15